Which fraction is larger, 1/2 or 3/8? Well, this is tricky because in these fractions, both the numerators and the denominators are different. But to compare fractions with different denominators, we find equivalent fractions with the same denominators. So we need to use what we know about finding equivalent fractions to make the denominators the same. So 1/2 is equivalent to how many eighths? Well, 2 times 4 is 8, 1 times 4 is 4, so we know that 1/2 has the same value as 4/8. And because 4/8 is bigger than 3/8, we know that 1/2 is bigger than 3/8. And we can show what we've done visually. We were asked to compare 1/2, which we can see in this rectangle, and 3/8, which we can see here. But we changed 1/2 to an equivalent fraction. We changed it to eighths, and when we do that, we can see that it's equivalent to 4/8, so it's bigger than 3/8. So now, which is larger, 1/3 or 3/12? Again, we need to change this third into twelfths so that we can compare them. What is 1/3 in twelfths? Well, 3 times 4 is 12, 1 times 4 is 4, so because 1/3 is the same as 4/12, we can see that it's bigger than 3/12. Again, we can show this visually. If we change 1/3 into twelfths, we get 4/12, so we know that it's the larger fraction. Now what about 2/5 and 5/10? We find the equivalent fraction, and as 4/10 is less than 5/10, 5/10 is the larger fraction. And we can see here, if we change 2/5 into tenths, we only have 4/10, so 5/10 is larger. Now here it gets more difficult. We need to compare 2/3 and 4/5. But we can't change thirds into fifths. 5 isn't a multiple of 3. So when one denominator is not a multiple of another, you need to change both fractions. So we need a number for our denominator, which is in both the 3 and the 5 times table. 15 is a multiple of both 3 and 5, so we can find two equivalent fractions with a denominator of 15. We need to convert both 2/3 and 4/5 into 15ths. 3 times 5 is 15, and 2 times 5 is 10, so 2/3 is the same as 10/15. 5 times 3 is 15, and 4 times 3 is 12, so 4/5 is equivalent to 12/15. And because 12/15 is bigger than 10/15, we know that it must be larger. So we were comparing 2/3 and 4/5. We divided 2/3 into 10/15 and 4/5 into 12/15, and that way we knew 4/5 was larger, even though we didn't need to draw out the fraction like we have done here. So now which is larger, 3/4 or 5/6? Well, 6 isn't a multiple of 4, so we will need to convert both fractions. 12 is a multiple of both 4 and 6, so we can find two equivalent fractions with a denominator of 12. It's always best to find the lowest common multiple of both numbers, so the lowest number which is in both times tables. So that's why I'm using 12 rather than, say, 24 or 36. So let's find our equivalent fractions. 3/4 is the same as 9/12. 5/6 is the same as 10/12. So we know that 5/6 is the larger fraction. So we can see, if you split 3/4 into 12ths, you have 9/12. But if you split 5/6 into 12ths, you have 10. So 5/6 is the larger fraction. So now pause the video and see if you can work out which is the larger fraction here. 18 is a multiple, it's the lowest common multiple of both 6 and 9, so we can find two equivalent fractions with a denominator of 18. 5/6 is 15/18. 7/9 is 14/18. So because 15/18 is obviously bigger than 14/18, 5/6 must be bigger than 7/9. And you can see 5/6 split into 18ths gives you 15/18, while 7/9 split into 18ths only gives you 14/18. So we know that 5/6 is larger